Have you ever dreamed of an adventurous holiday weekend where you just want to explore and experience new things? That's exactly what William and his two friends had in mind. They planned to visit Cave City, explore its hidden passages, and then head back home. But this mysterious, unexplored cave holds a dark secret. These three individuals, driven by curiosity, ventured inside without any preparation. They had no idea what started as a fun exploration would soon turn into a terrifying nightmare. Before we get too deep into what really happened inside the cave, let's first get to know who William is and how he ended up at this point. And please, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts. William Coughlin was a 27-year-old man with a deep love for the outdoors. Exploring was one of the recent hobbies developed, thanks to a friend who introduced him to a small cave near his home. Despite lacking experience and proper equipment, this newfound hobby ignited William's curiosity about the mysterious underground world, boosting his confidence to tackle more challenging caves. In the region, several caves are well known, but Buzzard's Roost Cave stands out as a true adventure. With its deep drops and tight, narrow passages, it's not a place for beginners. William, usually a homebody, was thrilled to join an organized caving expedition for the first time. The thrill of the unknown and the danger involved only fueled his excitement. He was eager to conquer this tough cave and share his achievement with the world. The incident. It was Friday, May 28, 1993, when three friends, William, James, and Kevin, set out on a journey from Illinois to Cave City. The town was bustling with tourists celebrating Memorial Day weekend, but the crowds were drawn to the surface attractions. The trio had only one thing in mind: the miles of a mysterious cave below. Upon arrival, they learned about two available tours: a historic tour that offered a guided walk through the easily accessible parts of the cave, and a wild cave tour that promised a thrilling adventure filled with crawling, twisting, and squeezing through tight, undeveloped passages. Intrigued, they decided to start with the historic tour. Before the tour began, they signed a release form, a single document that warned of the cave's dangers and absolved the operators of any liability. Trusting the guide and the operators to keep them safe, they brushed off the warnings. While William and James were eager to dive into the cave's depths, their friend Kevin chose to stay above ground, preferring to explore the local attractions instead. The historic tour, led by a guide named Dave Hard, went smoothly, but the taste of adventure left William and James hungry for more. That afternoon, they signed up for the Wild Cave Tour, joining four other participants for what promised to be a mere challenging and exhilarating experience. As they prepared to enter the cave, the guide handed out two handheld flashlights and instructed them to stay close. Following one other like a line of ducklings, he emphasized the importance of sticking together and warned them that this tour would be far more dangerous than the last. But William and James, brimming with confidence, were undeterred. They had been dreaming of this adventure for months, and nothing was going to stop them now. The group pressed on. Despite being surprised by the lack of additional equipment, experienced explorers knew that helmets, extra food, water, and at least 3 light sources are essential for a cave of this difficulty. Yet, the thrill of the unknown spurred them forward, their hearts racing with excitement as they navigated the cave's twists and turns. The first half of the journey was easier than expected, and the group eagerly anticipated the challenges that lay ahead. Encouraged by their guide, they ventured deeper into the cave, eventually reaching a narrow passage that led to a 30-foot hanging cable ladder with wooden rungs. The guide called out instructions as they descended, but the next ladder, shorter at 15 to 20 feet, was trickier, suspended over a rocky area. Once the group made it down, the guide announced that the official tour had ended, giving them the freedom to explore nearby passages on their own. However, they were behind schedule, and the guide left them at the bottom of the ladder to make a quick phone call. William, curious about a passage he'd spotted earlier, decided to climb back up the second ladder to explore. James agreed, thinking they might discover an unexplored part of the cave. But the climb was harder than William anticipated. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing around 220 pounds, he struggled to grip the unsteady rungs. Exhausted and frustrated, William decided to wait for the guide and took a break. James suggested the other group members to look for the guide, who had been gone for a while. After some time, William decided to give the ladder another shot, but this time, The climb got the better of him. Midway up, he lost his grip and fell, hitting his head on the protruding rock before crashing to the cave floor. Blood began to pour from a gash on his scalp, and James, in shock, rushed to help his friend. Though William was conscious, he was delirious and unable to make sense of his surroundings. Panic set in among the group as they realized the severity of the situation. When the guide finally returned, he insisted they would have to climb the ladders and exit the way they had come in. But William, now severely injured and disoriented, was in no condition to climb. James, fearing for his friend's life, argued with the guide, insisting they needed a cave rescue team to get William out. But the guide was determined to avoid causing a scene above ground, where hundreds of tourists were blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding below. Reluctantly, the group agreed to try an alternative route, a narrow corridor marked by the brochures provided by the guide. It wasn't part of the official tour, but it had been previously mapped and explored. They pushed and pulled William through the passage, surprised that they managed to overcome the first significant hurdle. But the real challenge was just beginning. Ahead of them lay a narrow, V-shaped passage that would test their resolve. The rough and sharp walls made it difficult to get a good grip, and the passage required a belly crawl, undulating up and down before taking a sharp turn to the left and downward. William, nervous about getting stuck, entered the tight passage head first. His large frame barely fit through, and halfway in, he realized he couldn't move any further. Gravity worked against him, and soon he was yelling for help, trapped horizontally with his arm pinned under his body. The others tried to pull him free, but the more they struggled, the more stuck he became. James couldn't believe the nightmare was unfolding before his eyes. Desperately, he used his strength to push William out, but it only made things worse. William's position compressed his diaphragm and lungs, making each breath a physical struggle. His breathing grew labored, and the sound of his struggle filled the narrow passage. The guide, seeing the dire situation, instructed James to go to the surface and get the cave owner, but it was clear that neither the guide nor the cave owner wanted to notify the authorities. Realizing William would need significant mechanical assistance to be rescued, the guide finally left to grab a medical kit and alert the authorities. 3 crucial hours passed before medical and rescue teams arrived. James did his best to comfort William, but the fear that his friend might die in that narrow gap weighed heavily on him. William's responses slowed until he was no longer answering, and James feared the worst. When the rescue teams finally arrived, they worked tirelessly to reassure William that they would get him out. But the downward angle of his position made the rescue even more challenging. They used chemical heat blankets and heaters to protect him from hypothermia, but the cave's temperature, dropping to about 44 degrees Fahrenheit, made it impossible to access him above the shoulder. As the hours ticked by, the situation grew increasingly desperate. The rescue teams fought against time, the cave's unforgiving environment, and the sheer difficulty of the task at hand, but William's fate hung in the balance, trapped in the darkness of the cave, with every passing moment reducing his chances of survival. The rescuers helped the rest of the group leave the cave, but James chose to stay with his friend William. The rescue team set up a pulley system to lift William out, but every time they pulled, it caused him severe pain. He groaned in agony, but the team refused to give up. They worked tirelessly all of Saturday to free him, but sadly, 17 hours after the rescuers arrived, William was pronounced dead. It took another 7 hours to carefully remove his body using ladders and ropes. William was finally brought out of the cave at 2:30 p.m. on Monday, nearly 3 days after he first entered. William died from comprehensive and positional asphyxia, and a bruise on his head worsened his condition. The Court of Appeals found that the cave's attractions owner knew about the risks but didn't properly warn the participants. As a result, William's family was awarded damages for the tragedy, as the disclaimers he signed weren't enough to protect him. But no amount of compensation would bring back our dear friend William. If you found this story interesting, please consider subscribing and liking the video. Your support helps us create more content like this and reach a wider audience. Thanks for watching, and happy exploring!